I know you had mentioned that you visited the island of Trinidad. What, in your opinion, did the population there possess to sort of make them want to maintain their identity? Not just there, but in Guyana, Jamaica, Suriname. And what is different there than what's different here in Canada? Because I think that our foreparents who were there in Trinidad versus what we have today here in Canada is night and day. I find some of the young people, not all, some of the young people don't really care to maintain that rich history. So what in your opinion is different from that society versus present time?
Good question. Okay, this is a very good question. My sense is that the people in the Caribbean I met, their idea of difference, their idea of being different, was not deep enough. I didn't feel that they had studied enough, had enough knowledge, and I feel that's the responsibility of the academic people who are of Indian origin and the religious leaders and the political leaders, because if they understand, then they can teach others. So the difference was more symbolic, and gee, I am a Hindu, I've got a Hindu name, and maybe I go to a certain house of worship and I call myself Hindu. It's more like what I call myself, but I would have wanted them to understand the basic foundations more deeply. The reason why I feel that a lot of people in the Caribbean were hanging on to Indian identity and Indian distinctiveness, I felt, was because the history of all the trauma that they had to go through. In order to survive that, they needed to preserve who they are, their sense of continuity, and unlike the blacks who became Christians, the Hindus could remain Hindu. So I think the idea of we are Hindu also became synonymous with we are Indian. And so we are not black. We are not black, and so non-blackness became known as Hindu, is my sense. A lot of being Hindu became a matter of not wanting to be mixed up as black, not wanting to be confused as black. So the nature of the other determined the kind of defense mechanism of defining who we are. In Canada, you don't have that same other. You don't have a large black Christian population against which you have to define your distinctiveness. You have a predominantly white Judeo-Christian background. So the issue is different now. The issue here is different. And I think ethnicity and race in the Caribbean got mixed up with the idea of Hindu. And so Hindu became a kind of an ethnic construct rather than necessarily a certain philosophical worldview, spiritual kind of a construct. So the focus on understanding its philosophical depth was not that much. It is also that the Hinduism is not so simple. And if you are oppressed people, you don't have access to great teachers, and you don't have universities and learnings and pathshalas and all that you don't have. So to some extent it's the traumatic history of the Indian Hindus in the Caribbean that made it very difficult to have a deep knowledge of Hinduism. Whereas blacks had the advantage because being Christian, the church from North America could feed them and fund them and send teachers, so they didn't have to create new knowledge and understanding through their own meditation and through their own practice. They were connected with the mother country or mother Christian countries that would look after them. Whereas I think the mother Hindu country didn't really look after the people in the Caribbean in the same way. To some extent couldn't, because it was also colonized. So if India had been a great power and right in the neighborhood of the Caribbean like North America is, and Indians had a great lot of institutions of Hindu thought, then they could have looked after the Caribbeans in the same way. But so the Caribbeans, it was a combination of all these factors that they faced a sort of an other group other than themselves, with different ethnicity and different religion, and that other group very well nurtured and supported by big churches and thinkers and education systems funded from Western countries, whereas they had none of these things. So it's quite remarkable that they were able to achieve what they were able to achieve. So I'm not diminishing that in any way, trivializing that. It was a very big achievement. When they came to Canada and other places, then that pressure to be different from the others was not there. The pressure turned into, okay, we are the immigrants, and now the home turf advantage is to the people who've been here much before us. So the burden is on me to become like them. The burden is on me when I go looking for a job to have an accent like them, to be less different. They won't accept me. They'll ask me more questions if they think I'm from somewhere else. Maybe my background and degree won't count as much as theirs. So maybe I should start giving up who I am in the way I dress, in the way I talk and all that, because I have to impress somebody else, and it's on their terms that I have to impress them. So I feel that when the immigrants came, and they continue coming, they are dislocated from that secure area that they have created in the Caribbean, where there is now support. There are at least numbers, and there is a continuity of 3-4 generations. They've created an identity. When they come here, it's sort of like free for all. They have to go out on their own and do whatever. So therefore, the tendency is to want to get digested. The tendency in the Caribbean was not to want to get digested into mainstream black Christian culture. But here the tendency is to want to get digested into mainstream white Judeo-Christian culture. So the pressures and the challenges to keep on track, to keep the difference preserved and appreciated, is a different kind of challenge. Now I'll also tell you there are more opportunities also. There are more challenges here, but more opportunities. The Canadian government is very multicultural. They give funds. That's why there are temples. But most temples I go to do not have a serious learning program. They are not temples of learning. They are temples of ritual, which is fine. You need that. You need symbols, you need rituals, you need emotions, you need psychological apparatus. All that is very, very important. But you also need very knowledgeable people who can relate it to modern life, who can, for example, give you a lecture on the Hindu origins of environmentalism in the West. A lot of environmentalism in the West came from India. A lot of knowledge, a lot of ideas about animal rights came from Europeans who went and studied in India. In the colonial era, they introduced notions of vegetarianism, became very fashionable in Europe from India, from the colonialists who went back. So large parts of what we call Western culture is the digestion of Indian culture. That's why we ought to understand the history of how we've been digested and be able to claim those things. If we can claim those things, then our youth will not think that we are obsolete, we are old-fashioned, we belong to some past era, it's nostalgia, it's chauvinism. They will think that it is relevant for today, because even Westerners are using these things. We must understand the history of scientific contributions that came from India. Now my foundation we started a project of 20 volumes on history of Indian science and technology. We've published 9. 5 of them we have in Princeton, and Will Charan has a set with him, and the other 4 I have to get from India. So this has taken me like 12 years to get these 9 out. We want to get some more out. And each volume is on a different topic, like metallurgy or Harappan cities or ancient technology, engineering technology, or medicine or water harvesting or things like that. So the purpose is to show to learned Indians that our civilization has produced a lot of good stuff, and to reconnect with that civilization, we can probably tap into that knowledge and do some good things today. So I would say that the kind of work I'm doing relates to the challenges facing people of Indian origin and Caribbean origin in Canada, in the sense that it tells you reasons for being reconnected, how to be reconnected, how to explain who we are to others, to our own people also. Yeah. Now, I don't have the time, health, energy left, and age left, and all that to go around and explain it to millions of people. All I can do is do my work as a researcher and writer. And then it is for other thinkers and teachers and speakers to pick up these ideas and spread them further. So my hope is that temples will each create a program of education. It's one thing to have Bal Vihar, which is very important, young kids, but for mature adults who leave the home and are very vulnerable because they are facing the outside world where they're being told weird things, they're being made fun of, and they don't know how to answer it because they don't have knowledge. So it's not enough to just attend one talk, you need a whole program of learning. And over a period of 6 months, become strong so you can talk back, you can answer back. And what I invite you to do is, if you go to beingdifferentbook.com, I have about 150 or more videos now of various talks, Q&A. The talks are on many, many topics, and each Q&A session is very different because each audience is different, they ask different Q&A. So you could spend a very large number of time. You could spend 50 hours, 75 hours every day. You could spend a half an hour, 1 hour, whatever, listen to watch one video. And over a period of time, you will get a lot of knowledge. And you can then read, while be watching, you can also be reading some material from the book. And the two together will give you a program of educating yourself without depending on anybody. And hopefully, leaders of temples, administrative leaders of temples, will take up seriously this issue of the intellectual dimension of our civilization. And then be able to respond to the challenges that our young people are facing. Otherwise, the first generation with a lot of nostalgia and a lot of passion will fund and build all these big infrastructure, and then when they are gone, the next generation will not bother. I mean, they will not have any use for it. And so it will be a waste. And I see that possibility in North America.